We're sewing for my mom again this week. I bought this pattern over a year ago and planned to make something for her. I actually started to work on it, pulled out the pattern, started to get it to the right size, and that's when we figured out we were moving, and everything just got put away for a while. So I'm finally pulling it out. I've changed my mind on the fabrication since then. I've been talking with her a lot about what's comfortable for her. We kind of do an accessibility style clothing for her. She uses a walker and she has back problems. She has other issues, so that sometimes just getting dressed is a little more difficult, but she's very fashionable and beautiful, and we want to not lose that while trying to keep things easy and keep her independent. So this pattern is a regular pattern you can buy in the catalog. One of the things I like about it is it has a nice little open neck placket, so it's a little easy to get over the head without messing up the beautiful hairs that she has. It comes in a couple different sleeve lengths because she does enjoy sort of a 3/4 sleeve length, so we can do that. It also has an option for the front to be quite a bit shorter than the back, so it has a long back, sort of an interesting shirt tail style, which is great because if you have somebody who either sits in a wheelchair or who's sort of bent forward, they usually need a little bit longer in the back and shorter in the front because of the hip, because the shirt hits the hip. So this is a great option for that. So that's why we're using this for my mom. Let me show you the fabric. I actually did a little small fabric order. I did a video a while back about going to fabric stores and not finding what I want, and I was looking for this pattern. So this is what we bought for my mom. This is from fabric.com, and one of the things they do that I love, this says, jackpot, you got the end of the bolt. I love it when that happens because you usually get a little bit extra. And I always buy fabric I love, so if I have a little extra, I can use it for something. This is a knit. Now this is meant for a woven. You could do this in a crepe or any soft linen, anything like that. We're going to make it knit. That's one of the things my mom said when getting dressed. If it's knit, it's easier to get dressed in. So, not meant for knit, but going to get sewn in a knit. And it'll be fine because we bought knit interfacing. So this is it. It's a paisley. It almost looks a little like a bandana fabric, but it's a little more elegant. It's very pretty. My mom wears a lot of red and she looks lovely in it. So that's for mom. I also bought, that's today's project, but I'll show you the other stuff I got too. This is another knit, same sort of thing. This one has a wonderful soft hand, and so does this. This is for me. I get another knit. I think I'm going to make the same shirt, one for mom, one for me. I really like it. Probably do a little different sleeve for me than for my mom. And then I bought this because I have a little dress that I want to make. I love it when I get the end of the bolt. I haven't measured to see how much extra I got. Now this, super soft and drapey. It's a green with sort of a peachy, almost a poppy flower on it. 60-inch wide. All of these are 60. And then I also got some knit interfacing for the little placket, neck plackets on this. For this pattern, because of how it's made, it's nice and full and drapey, and there's a lot of wearing ease, so I'm not super worried about doing a lot of alteration. Sometimes I do a lot to make sure it's fuller in the hip and that sort of thing, but this sort of has everything going for it the way I like it. It's got lots of little gathers and a nice pulled in neckline because we're all smaller here, even though we're broad shouldered. Mom and I are built very similarly. She's a little smaller than I am. So I'm going to do the shirt tail hem, and then anything that needs interfaced, we're going to be using our lovely little knit interfacing. This is fusible and knit. It looks like a tricot knit. It's very sheer and soft, and it's lovely. If you've not worked with knit interfacing before, you will love it. I really love knit interfacing. I made one small alteration on the pattern. So here's my back, and I'm cutting out a size 16 for the most part, but on this little part I went down 5/8 for the seam allowance, and then I eased out all the way to the size 20 in the hip, only in the back, just to give a little fullness for the rear end. So I did that for the back. This is the front pattern piece, and it comes as a whole piece. So one big, you can cut it a single layer. You don't need two of them, so you can cut a single layer of this. You don't have to though. You can fold it in half because it is symmetrical and cut it out. When you fold it in half, this is actually the fold line, so the center front's over, and that's because of the pleat. So you can cut it flat like that, or you can do like I'm going to do, which is I'm going to fold it in half. You can see it lines up perfectly. It's all nice and even. And I'm going to cut that on the fold up here, and then I'm going to cut this one on the fold over here. This is directional fabric. It doesn't look like it probably at first, but if you look at the design, it has a loop here and it comes down to a point, and they're all facing the same way. So I want to make sure that's cohesive throughout the patterns. I've got, here's my back, here's my front, they're both on the fold. And then I can put the other pieces below it, and the sleeve's a little wide. It doesn't quite fit, so you can see how it just hangs off just a little bit. So I'm going to wait to cut the sleeve, but I can get the front placket cut out if I want to, and the center back facing. But I think what I'll do is I'm just going to cut my front and my back. I'll open it up and cut these last 3 smaller pieces. I did get the end of the bolt, and so I got a little extra, and I'm very thankful. I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's a big smudge right here. When I worked at the fabric store, we used to get fabric like this. It would be just smudged from being lifted on pallets, smudged from leaning against something. It's easy to do. I do not pre-shrink my knits. If you've sewn with knits before, so you can kind of see the rolling right here. This is rolled up. If you wash this, it will come out in one long snaky tube and you'll never get it straight again. So unless you're sure your knit's gonna shrink, I do not mess with it. I don't pre-treat my knits like I do my wovens. All right, I'm gonna cut back in a minute. Everything's cut out. Make sure you cut 2 of the little round neck facings that's cut on the center fold. Let's find those, these. You need 2 of these little neckband neck facings. You need 2 of those. You need an interfacing for that, so here's those. And then you need 2 of the little neck plackets and interfacing for both of those. So 2 neck plackets and 2 interfacings. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. The pattern was so small in its print that I had to go get my glasses to read it, and even then I was second guessing myself because it's tiny and it was a little smudgy. I have a little hint for you. When you're cutting your interfacing and you end up with lots of pieces like this that's sort of small, and probably too small for a lot of your projects, but they're perfect for mending. So if you have to repair or stabilize something from behind, that's what I hang on to these for. Even like when I make jeans or pants or anywhere where I know I want a little extra stabilization, pocket areas, that sort of thing, I keep all my little scrappy scraps like this to fuse behind, just to make those areas a little stronger. All right, so we're going to get started. First thing we're going to do is interface all of these pieces. Here's our little pattern sheet. So once we've interfaced those pieces, we're going to start working on that front placket. So let me get those interfaced, and then we're going to put in our little pleat and reinforce our little corners for the center front. Oh yes, I am fusing my interfacing between 2 silicone sheets so that it does not stick to my iron or my ironing board. It also protects this fabric that's a little bit heat sensitive, so that if it sticks, look, it's stuck to the sheet, but not my iron, not my ironing board, and it pulls right away. After interfacing, the first thing we're going to do is reinforce this corner on our front, and it says reinforce at the circle. If you measure that circle, it is 5/8 of an inch away from, so it's at the stitching line, so we're going to stitch 5/8 inch down, sink our needle and over just to make a little corner, a few stitches, so that we can clip in for our facing. I've got this folded in half, but the front is cut on the fold, opens up. So there you can see, we've got one there. So we're gonna do that here and here. Before I do my little secure stay stitching here in these corners, I'm going to apply a little piece of my knit interfacing. I'll cut it out here, but I want to give this a little more security because it's knit, it's soft. We're going to have that little placket coming in a corner and pulling. This will give it a little more security so we don't end up with a hole in something as soft as this. Remember, this pattern was meant for a woven, not a knit, and I'm adapting it for my mom, so I want to make sure I make it as secure as possible because necklines get a lot of pull. Now that we have our stay stitching in, we're going to go ahead and put in the front pleat. If you line it up, it does not line up with this outer edge, so make sure you're paying attention to your markings and line it up exactly. It just shows the direction it's folding. And we're going to go ahead and locate our little circles on the shoulders. We're going to do a little gathering lines for the shoulder, for the front, and I believe the back has it too. Yeah, so let's go ahead. If we're gathering, gather everything at once. So we're going to go ahead and put shoulder gathers in, front and back, and we're going to just do this little pleat. We're looking at step 3, but we're going to take your little pleat. We're just folding over to over like so, and making a little stitch to hold it in place. But everything's free, so we can come back and add our placket pieces. So we're going to get all those pieces together, and then we're going to come back and start putting our little placket pieces in. So I'm sewing my 5/8 inch, and I'm pivoting at the 5/8 inch and sewing again. So I've got this little perfect 5/8 inch corner. And because of how I'm sewing, you cannot see the markings anymore. And if you didn't put a mark, which I didn't because I don't like to leave a mark on my right side, you have a line like this on your throat plate. At least most machines will. This is a 5/8 inch line. So if you're coming from the opposite direction, I can pivot, I can sink my needle right in that 5/8 mark there. I can rotate it, and can you see that? There's my 5/8 inch. Look, it's perfect. And now I can continue on and get my perfect 5/8 inch corner. Here's the little stay stitches. I'm showing you from the back side because it's easier to see. So you can see my interfacing that I stuck down to make it secure. And these stitches, and this is where we're going to clip in up to, but not through, our stitching. And I always clip a little shy, like maybe 1/8 of an inch. This is a knit, so it's going to give a little bit, so we don't need to be, I don't have to worry about it too much. If you're doing this in a really heavy fabric, you shouldn't, because that's shirt isn't made for it. It's made for a soft, lightweight fabric. We're ready to go into plackets. So I've run my basting stitch. This is the back. The basting in the back is on the neckline. The basting for gathering lines in the front is on the shoulder. And if you look at your pattern pieces, the front shoulder is wider than the back. So we're going to gather that up and make them match. So you get a little soft gathers here in the front and a little soft gathers in the center back. You got a little pleat in the front. All these nice soft little design details that make it hang pretty, gives a little more wearing ease, will make it easier for my mom to pull on and off because it gives her a little extra room. It'll also make it hang nice for her. So all of those are reasons why I chose this pattern. So we've done all of those things. Now remember, I interfaced behind this. You can't tell at all. This knit interfacing does not add any bulk. It just makes it nice and stable. So here's the pretty little front pleat. You probably can't even see it, but it's right here. So you can see how nice and soft that hangs. And then let me just show you on this. That knit interfacing, if you get the right weight, look at how soft it is. Like, it gives it stability, but it does not give it, it doesn't make it hard, it doesn't make it too firm, because we're working with a soft drapey knit. We want to continue to have a soft drapey knit. It just gives it a little extra firmness. So I'm really pleased with that. The next thing we're going to do is take our little placket pieces, and if you look at your pattern piece, there's a notch on one side. So the side that doesn't have the notch, we're going to fold back our 5/8 of an inch and press it. So you should have two that are mirror image of each other, like this. Where we folded back. Once you folded and once you folded and pressed the 5/8 inch, we're going to trim off a little bit of this excess seam allowance on the inside, because this is all going to get folded in like this, and we don't want 5/8 on 5/8 and make it super bulky. So we're going to trim this back to about 3/8 of an inch, just so that we have a little natural grading on the inside when we're done and attached. So we're going to get those things done. Let me find my scissors. All right, so we're going to trim off this extra seam allowance real quick. If you're choosing to sew in a knit and you're a new sewist, I probably would recommend starting with a woven for this pattern and then trying a knit. You need to get a little comfortable. Knits are not bad. I actually think they're super fun and not too hard to sew with. However, if you've never sewn, if you've sewn very little and you're new and you're adapting a woven to a knit to a woven pattern, you may have a few problems. So don't want to make your first few projects frustrating for you. I'm going to just put these side by side so you can kind of see the difference. Can you see this one's a little narrower than this one? So there's the difference when we trim away. Once we've done that, that is step 5. So now step 6, we're going to take our little top and we're going to take our pieces. So we're going to actually stitch this on the 5/8 inch line here. So stitch this 5/8, and we're going to come down to 5/8 here and stop. Okay, so we're going to come down to here, stop at the 5/8, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of push this back. Same thing's going to happen here. sew our 5/8, and on this side, and this is why I thought we should sew this first, but hey, this is how they have us do it. We're gonna stop when we get to, you can see where that little, where the pleat is folded over and it ends, that's where our stitching is going to end. So we're gonna sew both of those on to the front. So we're just gonna have our little plackets out here flapping in the wind for a minute. So that's the next step, that is step 6. So I'm gonna get those sewn real quick, and then I'll show you how to fold those over to finish the edges and line up our plackets. It's not as hard as it looks. It can be daunting, but it's really not. It's a little better than you might think, especially if you cut accurately. If you're starting to have issues, there's 2 things that it can be. Number 1 is you did not cut accurately, you were not careful. If you were left-handed, get yourself some left-handed scissors. Don't be cutting everything with right-handed. You will always be off in your cutting. It's just a fact. The other thing it could be is if your fabric moved, or if you're working with like a super soft, lightweight fabric and you're just having a hard time fabric manipulation. That could be it too. But if you stabilized things, it should go pretty easy. The construction is not too difficult if you don't have the other things working against you. So I'm sewing on my little front placket, and you've got this opening here, and pay attention so that you don't accidentally stitch shut this opening that we have. We're just sewing down till we get to this 5/8 inch mark, which will be right in here. You can put markings on your placket if you need to make it easier. And we're just stitching through. Oh, and I forgot to change my, don't forget to take it off of your basting thread, basting stitch length. Once you get your little plackets on and your little corners clipped, we're going to fold that in half, and it meets perfectly. So all of those seam allowances are on the inside of our placket. This is where we're at right here. We're slip stitching that shut. Now you could machine stitch this really carefully. You could top stitch this right along the edge, but I don't want the top stitching, so you can see I'm just doing a quick little slip stitch by hand, and I'm going to do that on both edges. So here's the other side. I've already pressed it, so all of this is going to come around like that and slip stitch. Then we're going to fix this little center front part after that's slip stitched. And just a little note, when you're stitching this on, you can see that we don't go past that 5/8 inch mark. All that's loose at the bottom. Front placket is in, so here you can see I've stitched, hand stitched from behind. Once these are hand stitched, just look at your directions here. You can see the direction they go, like which goes which. And it'll flip in. It should fit perfectly in that little opening where your pleat is. It kind of looks like this from the back side. And then I did a little stitch just to hold all those pieces together. Because there's a pleat in there, you can kind of zigzag this or serge it. If you're doing this with woven, you definitely want to serge this edge to make sure it doesn't fray. Because this is knit, I'm not as concerned about it, but I think I will serge it anyway just to make it flat. Now that we've done this pretty little placket, we are ready. So we've done to this point, and here it shows the little outside stitch. Now I did mine from the inside, but you should go on top right here, and you're going to just do a little tiny top stitch to hold all those pieces down and make it flat. That's it. That's it for that part. Now it shows hemming front and back before you do your side seam, and that's because it has the shirt tail, which I am going to do. You can roll and hem it if you've got a woven. I am going to set my machine and do a cover stitch hem. So I'm going to do a cover stitch hem real quick. I'll show you that over at the serger. Set up for a cover stitch on my machine, and I have a little video where the first time I did a 3-thread cover stitch on this, this is a Bernina L890. If you've never done a cover stitch, I actually have a video. I'll link it right now if you want to see how to do it. It was my first time, and I just did it step by step so you can see how to do it too. And now I'm just testing with a scrap to see how it looks. This is super soft, so I just don't want any gathers or anything. And then I'm just going to check back here. That's how the back, pardon all the extra threads. That's how the front looks. It's got a little give, which is nice. I have got lovely hems in, and I did the cover stitch. Because I had the cover stitch already set up in a sort of a process, you have to move your needles and change your foot and change part of the plate. Anyway, since I had it all set up, I went ahead and hemmed the sleeves flat. Now normally I like to hem the sleeve at the very end and not do a flat hem, but I didn't want to keep changing my serger back and forth. So I have hems in both sleeves just for streamlining and making life easy. I did the little top stitch on the end of my neck placket. We are now to, okay, we're all the way through step 10. Step 11 was doing the little gather stitches on the back of the neck. I already did that because I did it at the same time. Step 12 was doing the back hem. Already done that. So we are now to step 13. Woo! It goes fast, especially if you do like hem the front and back at the same time. We're now going to do shoulder seam. So what I did is I pinned the shoulder seam on each end where there's no gathering, and then I pulled the little gather stitches in between on the front so that now it's even and it's ready to be stitched. So I'm going to just stitch both shoulder seams. That is step 13. After that, we're going to do side seams. So I'm going to go ahead and serge my shoulder seams and my side seams. And then I will be back with you to neckband. Let's get our shoulder seams and our side seams in, and we can start on neckband. It's a shirt. Now that we have side seams and shoulder seams, and hopefully you can kind of see, can you see the little gathers? It turns out really cute. It looks very nice. On the side seam, after you serge that edge, I fold back the seam towards this back, and I just did a little top stitching right there to hold the seam down because I don't want any threads coming loose on the hem, because the hem was done instead of one fell swoop around, you have hem meeting at the side seam. So I kind of reinforce the hem right there at the side seam after I've done it. So now we are ready to do neckband. Okay, so we are all the way to step 17. Wow. So we're going to take our little neckband, and it says you're going to turn up the seam allowance on notched edge of the neckline, which is the outer edge, on the interfaced piece. So let's turn this over. Here's the interfaced piece, and we're going to just turn up our seam allowance all the way around on this and press it. After we've done that, we are going to stitch our neck edge. So we're going to stitch this all the way around, but we want to have this folded up first so that you catch that little bit of hem in it. So we're going to fold all this up and stitch around, and then we'll be ready to apply it to the neckline, set in our sleeve, and we're done. So let's go ahead and press this up. I'm going to just move this out of the way for a minute so we're not pressing both pieces if we don't need to. It's 5/8 of an inch. We're going to trim back to 3/8. It's one of those where they have us going ahead and like pre-grading it, which is fine. So we're going to press this up, and as you go, you're curving. So if you struggle with pressing and keeping your curve, you can run a little basting line on this curve, and you can gently pull it to help roll this edge up if it makes it easier for you. My iron's cold. All right, I'm going to press that up. I'll show you when I'm ready to assemble it. Sewing the little neckline piece, and if you're sewing an interfaced piece to a non-interfaced piece, put the piece that's interfaced on top, the uninterfaced or non-interfaced on the bottom. It'll help keep the two together. It'll ease in any extra from the non-stabilized piece. And you can see that's where I've trimmed away. So I'm just going to finish that up and we'll be ready to apply it. So here's our little collar or neckband piece. What do they call it? Don't know. Make sure you transfer your markings on the pattern piece. You'll see there's a big triangle, and there's also one on the shirt, on the bodice piece, and that is just to help mark the shoulder. So you need that so that when we're putting our neckline on, we get all the gathers in the right place. I also forgot when I was doing all the gathers on the back of the neck, there's a few in the little front of the neckline too. So I went back and put those gathers in. If you don't get your markings on there and match things up, notches, markings, etc., you can have your shoulder can be twisted, at the neckline. It can kind of make things wonky. It can also make so that the neckline pulls to the back or pulls to the front. Okay, we're going to start pinning together our neckline to our bodice. So we're going to, you can see, if you look at how the curve is, this is all going to get folded to the other side. So this is going to get folded around like this so that it's self-faced. Now, it does not say anywhere on the directions to do this, but if you've sewn very much at all, you know you need to clip this edge, trim it back in this inner corner, because right now we have the inside curve is smaller than the stitched curve, and it just won't lay nice. It's going to pucker and pull all along that stitched curve because the cut edge is smaller than the sewn edge. So we're going to trim that out real quick. All right, so there's the trimming out. I'm going to come in here along this inner curved edge, and I'm going to clip up to but not through the stitching in a few places just to make it release nicely, so that when I turn and press, it lays real nice and happy. All right, so now when I flip this around, now how I normally will do this is before I completely flip it around, I'm going to flip it part way like this, so it's open, and I give a quick press right on the seam all the way around, and then once I've done that, I'll flip it back. So now it's flipped, and I'll press again on the seam line here. There, now you can see how it goes. And if you find a place where it's puckering or not laying real nice, just go in and do another little tiny clip. But there you can see how pretty that's going to look. And I have got the interfacing on the bottom and the right side out on the top. And I'm not pressing a lot along this out. I don't want to unpress or change that edge, so I'm really just pressing right along the stitching line here to get this nice and smooth. There, so it's going to be pretty like that. Once we've gone all the way around with that, we're ready to sew it to our neckline. So we're going to match up this edge, this little edge, to our sewn edge here. So we're doing right sides together. So we're going to pin the front edge, and then we're going to come where the shoulder seam is, and we're going to pin that. That's going to help us get our gathers right. Do the other shoulder seam of our right sides together. Now I bought fabric to make this for me as well. I bought a stripe, and I really am liking this pattern. I'm going to try my mom's on, but there's something I don't like about it design-wise, and it's that little front pleat below the placket. And I'm considering, if I make this for myself, eliminating that pleat. I think for me, it kind of ages it. I don't know. We're ready to pull our gathers. Get everything gathered up all the way around. So we can start pulling these gathers. I personally, when you have something like this, I always do center back to center back. That way you don't end up with your gathers slightly skewed right to left. It helps keep things nice and straight. So I'm going to do that. And then we're just going to sew the 5/8 inch around, do a little grading and clipping. Then the neckline will flip around, and we'll whip stitch that down, and then we're ready for sleep.
You came up here for something. I know, but what? Do you want some switches? Oh, you want to play? Want to play? Some play, some doggy play? Some pets? You can make some pop. Did you want a treat? Oh, you want a snack? Okay. Well, I'll stop and get you a snack. Okay, let's do it.
Just stitch the collar on, and I want to show you when you're sewing the collar. It's a little funky right through here. So here's the curve. Can you see how this sort of hangs off the edge of the placket? You see that? So we want it to be made perfectly right at that stitching point. And then when it's folded back, can you see how it lines up perfectly? Nice and even. So you want to match at the stitching points, not at the edges. So this little edge is going to hang off, but it meets perfectly at the stitching point. Okay? It also helps to have all of your notches, circles, etc. marked. It'll make life a lot easier. Now that we've done that, I can pull out all my extra stitches, my basting lines, and then I'm going to do a little trimming right in here, because see, all of this gets put into this curve. See, there's the curve. All of this is inside that curve. So we're going to trim a little bit so it's not too bulky inside that curve, and then this can come around, and then I'm going to whip stitch this down just like I did the inside of this placket. So the placket and the inside of the neckline are all self-finished, and it'll be really pretty onto sleeve. Don't forget to put your label in if you're doing it before you stitch down the inside of the neck facing. So this is my label. It's on the inside of the neck facing like this, where it can't be seen. Little neckband is on. This is so cute. My big concern is this is going to be cleavage. We'll have to try it on and see if I'm going to need to do a little tacking, because I know my mom's not going to want to mess with multiple layers or cleavage. So after that, I've already hemmed my sleeve. I told you while I had the serger set up for the cover stitch, I went ahead and did my sleeve hem. So I just sewed the underarm seam on both sleeves. I did this at the side seam and at the sleeve. After I did that, I pressed the back the seam to the back of the garment. I kind of pulled up the excess serger thread and I just tacked it. That keeps all those threads from coming loose in the wash or with wear. Just makes it more tight since it wasn't hemmed at the end. We're ready to set the sleeves in. Now if you're doing, I'm doing the short sleeve. It's summer. It's already 90 degrees and it's May, early May. So we need cool clothes here. But if you want to do the long sleeve version, it has two parts to it. So it has an upper sleeve and an under sleeve. And you want to, sometimes they'll call it a front and a back. It's sort of like how men's suit coats are often made, or any nice tailored suit coat where it'll have an upper sleeve and an under sleeve, and it's a nice fit. This is how that sleeve is made, and it has an opening for the placket and the cuff, so there's a lot more to that sleeve. It's a very nicely made sleeve. It should fit really well and look good. I'm not doing it, however. So if you're following along with me and you're doing the short sleeve, we are all the way to view C step 40. So the top of the sleeve will have a few bastings. It's not gathered in the sleeve, it's a set-in sleeve, but it has some basting for ease. I'm not even worried about that because I'm sewing mine in a knit. So after that, you make sure you've marked your notches, and we're going to set our sleeves in right side to right side. Let me find, get my glasses back out. Right sides together, and then you match your notch to your notch. And there's never any ease in the underarm, or there, I won't say never, there's somewhere out there, there's a sleeve, they've got ease in the underarm, but 99% of the time, the underarm of the sleeve will fit the underarm or the armscye of the shirt exactly, so you don't have to worry about any ease. So I get all of that pinned in, then I match the shoulder of the sleeve to the shoulder of the shirt, and then it's ready to go. So we're going to do that, and because it's hemmed and everything else is done, I'm just going to give it a good press after the sleeve is in and put it on the dress form. I might try it on just for my own satisfaction to see how it fits and how I like it. I'm a little concerned that I'm not going to like the little pleat that's at the bottom of the placket. I may have already said that, but I'm not sure I'm going to like that. So if I don't, it'll let me know if I want to make an alteration. I like everything else about this. I like the little neck placket and so forth. I like this shirt tail hem. I'm just a little concerned about that one part. So you can see this sleeve, especially since I have knit, is fitting in just right. I'm not going to have to really worry about a lot of ease. All right, so serge in these sleeves and try it on. All right, I'll see you over at the dress form in a minute. Here's our finished cute little top. Just turn it to the side so you can see the pretty hemline. It has nice little gathers across the back. It's nice and soft and full and drapey. I'm really happy with this soft jersey type knit in this. It's meant for like a crepe or something similar, very lightweight linen. So it's meant for a little bit, but I think it's sewn up so pretty in the knit. Very pleased with it. This would be very cute if you wanted to tuck the front in and leave the back out. So I think I want to try this on my mom and see if this is going to be too low. So we'll try it on her, and I may put a snap inside there so she can have it nice and open and wide for trying on, or for putting it on, and then we can snap it shut for cleavage if we need to. I haven't tried it on myself yet. I'm not sure if this is the only thing I don't like, and it's this one little pleat right here. And if I decide to make it for myself, I'm going to alter it so that it has the placket front without the pleat. I don't know why, but it's something that it changes the way it looks to me, and it kind of ages it to me. It looks like it should be for somebody older in my head. And I also was going to do it in a stripe, so it would make it more obvious in the stripe. You would see that pleat more, where in this it kind of disappears. So I haven't decided yet on myself, but I'm very happy with this. I'm going to take it to my mom this week, and we'll see what she thinks. So I'm wearing my mom's shirt. Yeah, it's cute. Okay, I think I might make it for myself after all. See you next week for another fun video.